All right, we've got a packed room already. So, well, I guess thanks everybody for joining today. This is the second Avalanche on Clubhouse. So today we'll be talking about scaling crypto communities globally and how we're doing at Avalanche, so Ava Labs. So it should be a really interesting subject for everyone. And I guess before we dive into the subject, why don't we do a round of introductions? So I'll start with myself. So I'm Sinan. I've been with Ava Labs, the marketing team, for the past just over 3 months. I'm mostly looking into digital marketing and also some social media management at the moment. And yeah, so far so good. Lots of things happening, so it's an exciting place to be. And let's go around the room. So Patrick?
Hey everybody, Patrick Sutton, Director of Communications at Ava Labs. Been here for just under a year now, and my primary focus is a lot on the content front, so developing out blogs, byline articles, and whatnot, localizing content down to the community levels and the local levels, and then also focusing on media relations and PR for us.
Great.
Hey everyone, JVP of Marketing at Ava Labs, primarily on the community front, making sure that we have a fully staffed operation that spans the whole world and is able to do so in a very efficient way. I think some of the things that we'll be talking about you probably haven't really seen in other crypto communities, I don't think, and if so, then please let us know. We would love to learn from those people, because I think one of the things that we've also found to be very interesting about some of the models that we've employed is a lot of people are taking notice and trying to figure out how we're doing that. So we'll definitely dive a little bit deeper as to how this works, especially with all the voices on the panel today.
Hey guys, this is Rocky Rock. Stoked to be here. First time actually on a panel here at Clubhouse. As far as my involvement with Ava Labs, been with the company about 6 months now. You know, really my role has kind of morphed over those 6 months. Most recently, I've been doing a lot of kind of one-on-one conversations through our intercom system, and then also organizing quite a few of our events lately. So from our AMAs to meetups, fireside chats, interviews, things like that, just making sure the marketing wheels are still turning.
Thanks, Rocky. Excellent. So why don't we just dive in? I guess the first question that comes to my mind when we're talking about crypto communities, what makes it a great community, and what has been kind of your experience so far? So maybe I'll again start with Patrick.
Yeah, so I think there's a few things that go into that. Number one, the first thing that the thing that gets me most excited every day with the Avalanche community is just a high level of engagement and passion for the project, but not just in like a blind, shilling of a project, but really understanding what's going on, what we're all contributing to, and what we're trying to build for. Because there's a lot more to technology, and especially technology in this space, than just sharing a message without really knowing what's going on behind it. And I think that's one thing that our community does better than just about any community I've come across in crypto. And I think, everyone throughout the organization and through the project has said as much. I know that Goon has even mentioned, I think in a recent article saying like, the community of Avalanche is really the kind of gem of the project alongside the technology there. And I think the only way you get to that is by building an organic community from the roots that is really focused on technology and creating a community of inclusiveness and building for what the project's trying to accomplish and try to move toward a mission rather than just move toward some milestone that might be out there, or kind of lose the day-to-day progress we're making in kind of this broader vision. So yeah, I think proactive, engaged, and informed communities are what really sticks out in crypto to me.
Nice. Jay?
Yeah, that's definitely one angle to take it from, and I totally agree there. I think that's what also gets me super excited. I think another thing to touch on is more of the structure and how we're setting all of this up operationally. And I think most people here probably could agree with this statement that I'm about to say is a lot of the crypto channels that exist or the community channels are totally brand new to organizations. I just don't see, I don't know, let's say like even like an Amazon or even like tech companies, for example, have two-way Telegram chats, let alone 15 plus or 20 plus channels all across the world running at 24/7 speed. I think that has served as a really interesting challenge for all of us to try and capture. And of course, because of the open nature of blockchain technology and the open nature of some of these chat systems, it's become a little bit chaotic at times. And that's something that we're trying to try and mitigate as much as possible so we can have that constructive community that Patrick is talking about. And so the way we've structured a lot of this is trying not to necessarily put all of our eggs in one basket, but instead trying to figure out and really understand what these platforms are for. So Telegram, for example, became super, super big in about the 2015, 2016 era of crypto as the ICO boom started to go through the cracks of the globe. And when that happened, you effectively saw a lot of crypto companies launch on Telegram from day one. Of course, because Telegram is a single feed and there's no real organizational methodologies that exist within the platform, it gets a little bit chaotic just from a conversation standpoint. And so you're going to see a lot of retail activity there, retail trading activity, sorry, just to be specific. And then on the flip side, we also wanted to make sure that we had a more constructive conversation for the developers, not so much the retail side. Of course, the constructive conversations can happen in Telegram, but I think for the technical constructive conversations, we really needed a place to capture that. So at Ava Labs and for the Avalanche platform, we've set up Discord and the Avalanche Forum. Avalanche Forum serves as a really good static place for discussion. Avalanche Discord serves as a really good real-time place for discussion. And now, holistically zooming out, we have about, I don't know, Rocky might have actually the exact numbers, but we have about 15 to 20 active regions covered with community manager or 2 or 3. And a lot of you probably have interfaced with them. And the way we've structured it initially is having a hub and spoke model. So we have the core strategy team, a lot of whom are on the panel now, and we are making sure that we have the holistic top to bottom funnel marketing strategy, making sure that that's being received by the community managers, and then making sure that then that messaging works well in their local environment, because every market is different, and in crypto it's definitely vastly different, I would even say. And so basically what we have in the last couple of quarters that we've been focused on is not only to have the presence in these regions, but then making sure that all of this messaging works in that ecosystem or that region. And so what's really cool to me, and this is like what is a little bit insane to think that it actually has come to fruition, is if you have an announcement or if you have a co-marketing initiative and we're about to put it out on the Avalanche channels on the main English speaking one, you're going to soon find out that there are about 5 to 10 languages almost immediately post the same content outwards. That type of coordination is something that is super impressive and something that we want to keep moving forward. So I think one of the closing thought here is one of the biggest challenges that we have is trying to maintain that momentum and also scale to the regions that we currently don't have a presence in. And I definitely think that Rocky has a lot of insights as to what we've been doing so far with those regions and what we're looking to do in the next few quarters.
Yeah, thanks, Jay. That was great. And before I get my answer, guys, why don't we have everyone in the audience go ahead and follow these guys? It's we're going to keep doing this, but it's been just awesome working with these guys. And so please, follow them. They're just dropping, truth bombs left and right. So yeah, go ahead and do that during this panel whenever you're ready. But with that being said, guys, I think one word that comes to mind when I think about what makes a great community is really accessibility. And so kind of to touch on Jay and Patrick's point, I feel like we have a community where we are omnipresent. And so with that being said, if you're like Jay said, if you're a retail person that's not very technical, maybe, Telegram or Twitter would be a great place for you. If you're more of a dev, maybe the forum or the Discord is a great place for you. So we really just try to make the community accessible for whoever you are. And so having these different buckets that you fall in and a community within those buckets makes it very accessible to really anyone, whether you're a total noob or whether you're a, OG developer, we have a place for you. Just to share some statistics with you guys, I'm looking at our Telegram presence right now. And what's really interesting at this point is that only 1/3 of our community on Telegram is essentially in the US or main channel. So 2/3 of our actual community on Telegram is abroad and speaking different languages. So, I mean, that's just incredible. I would have actually thought that would be much closer to a lot higher percentage, but that just goes to show how global this, crypto truly is, right? It's open for everyone. It's not just for the rich and the wealthy or the US based people. And our metrics, kind of show that exactly. So I think that's quite interesting. Just this year, I'd say, since the beginning of 2021, we've seen an increase on our Telegram of close to 50% across the board. So we've really just seen this kind of inflection point as this new year has started, and our communities start to build and grow and kind of take shape into their own. I think about at first, there's several levels to what a community can be. And, at first you're ignored from competitors, but now we're actually being noticed by some of these competitors. And, there's different stages to the whole, community building process. But we're, people are noticing us, and it's showing, across the board, whether it's in our Discord channels or Telegram or Twitter even. People are giving us the recognition, I think, that we deserve, and kind of tying this whole thing in a bow, we're, one of the most accessible projects as well, just because of all these different assets that we have with regards to places where people can, communicate with like-minded individuals and are really here for, quote unquote, the tech versus just the investment potential.
Rocky, good points. And I think from my perspective, I mean, you guys have been, very much more involved on the kind of the Telegram side of things. And, you've been in there all the time, whereas I'm spending a lot more time, obviously, on Twitter and thinking about what we can do on Twitter. But I think when I do spend some time in Telegram and I'm reading conversations, what I really like about the Avalanche community is that people are talking about technology all the time because, this is a two-sided coin, right? There's the blockchain technology side and there's like the cryptocurrency side. And I really, it's great to see like people talking about permissions use cases for enterprises and permissionless use cases. And then big part of our community are trying, the dApps being built on Avalanche. And I think that's really important because ultimately, you want a community that's really into technology and is going to be there with you during the whole kind of trip. And I think it's great to see that, everybody is kind of hands-on. So I think the next question I have is, what's kind of, I mean, we talked about being global, right? So being global brings also some challenges around, being, online for the different regions, being able to serve all the different customers and, stakeholders that we have. So Jay or Patrick and whoever want to go first, like what is one thing that, we've done really well, and what's one thing that we should be looking into doing sort of better to kind of keep that global momentum going?
Yeah, in terms of, I think really well, I don't want to repeat the same statement that I made in terms of the instant feedback that we get from all the community managers. I think another thing to definitely highlight is just the concentrated conversations and constructive conversations that Patrick was touching on a little bit. I think that's something that's very unique. Maybe not just to Avalanche, but there aren't that many projects that have really constructive conversations, at least within their main chat. It's definitely hard to maintain that. And I think that can be credited to the work ethic of all of the team members. I know all of us were connected around the clock, and I think that's also in its own way, it's also the opportunity. And the opportunity perhaps is, as we continue to push through the first year of Avalanche being live on mainnet, there's inevitably going to be more stakeholders come onto the platform, but there's also going to be more people that are just interested in general. So how do you segment those vastly different audience groups and make sure that not a single person feels like they're left untouched or unaddressed by either someone on the team at the Ava Labs side or some fellow community members? So I think the way we're going to be approaching the next year or so is really trying to, the phrase that I always like to say is working smart, not hard. The idea is that, of course, we can work hard, but if you work a little bit smarter about and be a little bit strategic about how you employ some of these elements, then you can have it compound in its effects. And so I think our biggest focus, actually, that we haven't given as much attention to comparatively to Telegram or Discord, for example, is the Avalanche Forum. The Avalanche Forum, I foresee, can be a tremendous value add to the ecosystem, especially as more applications come on chain, and then also more developers are coming into the ecosystem trying to figure out what they want to build using this amazing technology. And I think the immediate term solution is to just scale in terms of human capital and just getting the best and brightest talent already or for the future, and we already have that already. So that's kind of something that we're fairly confident with. I think the second piece is just making sure that we have a really good structure and also culture both internally and externally, so then people come into the Avalanche ecosystem and are like, okay, I understand what these guys are all about or what this platform is all about. Here's kind of the ethos that exists in this channel. Here's the ethos that exists in that channel. I'm totally on board and I want to be a part of it. And I think that type of outlook would be amazing to have. And if we could win every single person that comes into that Telegram channel, every single person that comes in Discord, and all the other foreseeable channels that get added into the roster, that would be the coolest thing for I think all of us to see. Even the people in the call, I think we would all really benefit from that.
Yeah, and I think, like Jay said, coming up on a year now of me being in the project and really involved on the community front and engaging with everyone in the community for this amount of time, like personally, what's been the most fun and energizing part of all that through. We've had a lot of long nights with the community through, the sales last summer, the mainnet launch, product launches since, milestones. Through those, I think that there's this concept with community that there's just this one big structure. And it's just like this uniform thing that just exists behind a project. But the reality is, like, for every time I jump in the Telegram channel just to chat or answer a question for somebody or engage with something, the most energizing thing is that I see the same people around. And sometimes I can remember a moment with a user or somebody that we had chatted around mainnet, or whether it was, the Av hats on mainnet launch night, or like, farming hats we've randomly done in the middle of the night. Like that stuff, I think means a lot in the long term, because it means we're building some personal relationships, especially in a year where I think that's been taken away from a lot of us, is like that interpersonal communication. And I think when you look at what community eventually boils down to, and I think what it should, if Avalanche is going to have a community that brings people in and doesn't push people out of the project, as we've seen with a lot of communities throughout crypto's history, I think that's going to consistently be so important. And I think that is something that the project has done well, but I think that that's only possible because of how the community is so engaged with the project, and not just passively minding to it, but really engaged with it and helping each other answer a lot of questions. Because as Sinan notes, being a global community means, despite like our best efforts to cover each time zone or answer every question, the reality is that that's never going to be possible. So when I see other community people jumping in to help somebody figure out an issue, or jumping in to say, hey, people be on the lookout, there's a scam group that's popped up, like let's all report and block these guys together, that's really what has me most excited on a day-to-day basis, because those aren't the exception to how our community engages with each other. That's the rule. And I think that that's particularly that is a testament to as much the community as anybody's individual efforts that have gone in. That's only possible when you have this many people all pushing toward a unified goal and embracing a mindset of bringing people in rather than just pushing people out.
Patrick, thanks. So let's open to questions. Taylor, welcome.
Yeah, thank you. First off, wanted to congratulate you guys on, all the hard work that you've done. I'm a huge fan of Avalanche, and to be able to see it grow like how it has been is amazing. And, a lot of that is due to marketing. So, props to you guys, and, looking forward to continuing to follow it. So my question is, I'll gear it more towards the marketing side of things. But one thing that I've noticed from following along on the social medias and Telegram, kind of just a lot of the marketing output is more so of a focus on, enterprise partnerships, or, kind of going after bigger names, which of course from a marketing side makes sense, because, the average person is more likely to know, in a venue like Sushi Swap as opposed to maybe like a startup on the AVEX ecosystem. But in particular, the platform that I've seen grow a ton lately is Snowballs and Snow Globe. And, I haven't really seen much, PR or marketing assistance from the main Avalanche team. And I was wondering if, there was a reason behind that, or if, if Snowballs is, a platform that I should, be careful using, or kind of like any input there to kind of not,
Yeah, so we've connected. I think we're connecting with the team. I think one thing that we like to do is just make sure that any project that we're helping promote and bring to the community has been well vetted. So I think any project, but this also comes back to a core point that I consistently make through the community, which is like, it's really important that everyone does their own research in this space and doesn't just rely on any individual source, whether that's an Ava Labs team member or somebody from the community saying something. I think it's really important for everyone to contribute to a kind of solid, holistic body of research that we all put in together. And then I think that's also an area where the community shines. The community's raised a lot of good questions about projects in the past. They've raised concerns, or just been really excited about projects that they have looked into. So I haven't personally been able to look into them much, but I know that our teams connect with them to learn a little bit more about them, and then learn a bit more about the kind of code and how much auditing and everything has gone through that. So I can't speak specifically to that, but I always encourage projects that are coming into the Avalanche ecosystem, because we're going to see a lot more of them. And that's like what has anybody who's working in decentralized systems should be excited about this. Like having projects build on the platform that we don't know about is amazing. That means that like the platform itself is right, that the thesis of Avalanche is correct, and that people are excited to build on this because they see the potential, and they don't always need to be handheld to get there. That means everything is going right. I just encourage those projects launching within the community to be very transparent, to be forthcoming with the community, to really engage with them, to earn that trust. Because I think, within DeFi, we've seen plenty of instances on all sides of projects not being trusted when they really should have been, or that taking too long, or projects being trusted when maybe they had some questions in the process. So I think as projects go through a bit of that vetting, then we feel more comfortable promoting to the community overtly, and making a bigger splash for them. But our doors are always open for that, and we always encourage that. So, but I do know that team has been connected with our team to have some further discussions.
Nice, awesome. Yeah, thank you for that. Makes sense. And yeah, I'm sure I can imagine from your guys' standpoint, seeing this through to where now there's random platforms that you had never heard of or you had never spoken with, their team just popping up on an Avalanche. I'm sure it's amazing to see. It's got to be.
Oh yeah.
Gotta be
I
awesome.
mean, like, I'm excited to see that. I'm hoping some projects, embrace some non-snow winter motifs at some point, but I totally get it. But like, yeah, I mean, it's the most exciting thing is, that's the work that's gone in from everyone around the project. That includes the core team members to people who've contributed just open source work to the project. Like, this is a collective effort that's come to this point, and I think anybody who's been involved at any stage of it should be really proud when they see projects building on the platform, choosing it as the place to go, as opposed to networks that have been around for a little bit longer, but choosing Avalanche as the home for their new project. I think, what can be really more exciting than that from anybody who's been involved in the project.
Completely agreed, and that props to you guys, and keep up the hard work, and look forward to continuing to follow it.
Yeah, thanks, Taylor. I think another quick two things to add. One is, so Patrick, I don't think pangolin is a winter animal though, but
that's true.
Yeah, I'll let that one slide. I think the to your question too, Taylor, one of the things actually Patrick and I were talking about yesterday, and to the idea that the platform and the activity that lives upon it is living beyond the, I guess, kind of our immediate front view. And that's incredible. I think one of the things that I can tie that down to are actual numbers. So the last 17 days, we've run 14 full-fledged campaigns with respective DApps or tools or something in between, anything that integrated into the Avalanche platform. So the team is still very small relative to how much we're putting out. And I think, like I mentioned before, one of our challenges to really make sure that we can keep up with that and also then leverage the external parties who want to help as much as possible, of course, because this is an open source project. We want to really champion that spirit as much as possible as we continue to grow.
Thanks, Jay. So I want to open up to the room again. So are there any questions? Please ask questions. It's all about community. So I'm sure there are things that you guys want to discuss with us. So please don't be shy and come forth. Otherwise, I have plenty of questions. Okay, we got one.
Hey guys,
Kevin.
I just had a question about the AEB branding. I remember earlier, like when you first were announcing the bridge, you had that cool like retro get bridge branding, but now it's off of the site. I was wondering if you had any intention of bringing that branding back, or why you decided to drop that.
Yeah, I think the main thing I would mention is the Avalanche Ethereum bridge is managed by the trusted relayers that are there. So they're kind of dictating the future of that product. I actually don't know the actual reason for why that happened, but if you're actually alluding to figuring out how we can continue to push some of those I guess artistic leaning creative, we're definitely trying to do that as much as possible. A lot of the new collateral that we've been putting out on the Avalanche platform side, we're trying to go against the grain of what's existed and not be so techie, but actually just be fun and fluid. And so actually, let's see, Julia, she's in the followed by speakers section. She's one of the super talented designers on the team. She's been crushing it when it comes to a lot of these really highly visual graphics. There's also a few other designers, Felipe, Peter, to name a few. And these guys are all just trying to make sure that when you're looking at the social feed and or whatever other feed that you guys are tuned into, that when you're scrolling, you're like, oh wait, what is this? I need to actually click it, or I need to read into it, or this is actually really cool. And I think the even better outcome would be if the social algorithms are able to then serve it to the friends of friends who you guys have on your feeds or our collective feeds, and they're able to say, oh, what's this very interesting looking creative? I actually don't know what Avalanche is, and maybe I also don't even know what crypto is, and I need to look into it more. So I think maybe that's what you're alluding to, Kevin, with the kind of the retro vibe? Because I'm sure that had that same impact as well.
Yeah, exactly. So it was super interesting, creative, and got me interested in the bridge and doing my research. But
What'd you like about it?
Just that it's so different from most projects in crypto, and then also I would say just like tech startups in general. It's just unique and different, and then also just the retro aspect of it. I could see that being on like t-shirts or I don't know, just it was just a unique exploration of the brand, I thought. So I don't really have a great answer, but just thought it looked
No,
great.
that totally makes sense. Okay, so here's what we'll do. We'll definitely include some retro stuff in future coming stuff and materials. Yeah, Julia, she's the one that's kind of been leading that too. I don't know if Julia, if you want to give some tips as to what's going on.
Yeah. I wanted to definitely add a comment. I think, are you referring to the cool retro video? It was like the promotional video before we launched.
Yeah, it was this like car.
Yeah, it was super cool. I think sometimes like UI isn't gonna reflect necessarily like all the brand elements because we want the UI to be clean, but I definitely see the gap that you're referring to because it looks, even like the color scheme is very different from that retro video. So it's a good good user feedback to hear that you kind of wanted to see more of that retro aspect because you really liked it. So that's super helpful.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin. All right. So any other questions from the room? Nobody? So, okay. In the meanwhile, then, I'll ask Rocky. So, Rocky, I mean, you're spending a lot of time speaking to loads of different people from different backgrounds. Is there anything that shocks you anymore? Like, what kind of questions are you getting? Anything from the very technical end to more business related? Do you have any kind of anecdotes or any kind of feedback from kind of your day-to-day experience?
Yeah, thanks, Sinan. It's a good question, and definitely, because I feel like a lot of these projects, just speaking of crypto projects in general, are a lot of them are based here in the U.S. and their audiences are mostly U.S. based. You only get a subsection of your actual users, right? You're only talking to a small, percentage of your users, assuming you're a global project or you want to be a global project. So I think the thing that stands out to me is I'm just learning about the culture, right? I'm learning when we have, like I said, about 15 communities and all of them have their own culture, the way they communicate. There's really no one size fits all. You have to cater your message to each local market. And the best way to do that is to have local experts. I mean, it kind of goes without saying that if, all of us on the panel tried to do that, we would probably fail miserably. So the fact that we have those kind of local people that understand the local market, they understand, the people's desires, what they want to see, what the messaging needs to be. And that's what's the beauty of this community is that we're able to rely on those, community managers to make those decisions. We don't want to have this kind of top-down approach where it's just, you must do this, you must do that. We really want to empower the individual community managers to say, here's, I think, the best way to do it. And we give them, hey, here's the collateral to go do that. We'll support you on the back end. Feel free and just take it. And, that's what we've seen. In fact, I'll highlight a few communities. One, which is our most recent community that just popped up, is our Hindi community. It was, we got contacted from a community member, I want to say it was about a month ago, with the desire to say, hey, I want to expand the Avalanche community to, the Hindi speaking community. And we said, great, let us help you set that up. And she's been doing a great job at starting and bootstrapping that community. And,
I've seen a couple of YouTube videos, right? She has a couple of videos on Avalanche, I think.
Yeah, exactly. So that just, goes to show the people come out of the woodwork and want to get involved. And I think that gives you, the signal to, okay, we're doing something right. And so, I think to take kind of a step back, I think we'll continue to see this kind of expansion of people wanting to get involved, and really the community will take its own form, and it's no longer dictated by us, and we let the community kind of guide where they want the project to go. And kind of the last point is that, because we are this global project, each community has its own, feedback for the main project, right? So if we have people in Turkey or in, Germany that don't like a particular feature or are having some issues, maybe with the UI or the UX, we're able to actually kind of take that feedback internally and turn it into these actionable insights that we can improve the product, not just for our local community here in the US, but for the community abroad as well.
Yeah, I think, Rocky, the uniqueness of each community that you highlighted is something that also like blows my mind all the time. And I am continually learning personally every day as I talk to a lot of these community managers. I think another anecdote to bring to the conversation is the Chinese market. And China, or actually Asia Pacific as a whole, is a completely different beast. China, Korea, and Japan, just to name some of the main ones, at least in the crypto context. But with China, you basically have communities that exist in channels that don't really exist in the Western world. Like WeChat is a really big one. There's also Weibo in Korea. There's Kakao in Japan. There's Line. So effectively, not only do you have to probably speak those languages to really understand what's going on, but you also then have to create those accounts. So what I think most of us in this channel probably are used to these days in crypto is you have Telegram, you have WeChat, you have all these chat platforms, and you're pretty much getting pinged left and right. And then trying to really sift through, I guess, the quote unquote noise that results from all of this activity. And exactly to your point, Rocky, about understanding the market via the community manager, I think that's the most important thing. And one of the things we do at Ava Labs is we have kind of a built-in incentivization structure and a way for each community manager to lift each other up. And we basically have a multi-tier system where if you want to be a community manager and you want to come into the system and you want to manage a community, we have a trial period. And after that trial period, then you're able to prove that you're able to manage these communities. And if you're, of course, an all-star, then there's really no reason why we wouldn't be able to add you onto the Ava Labs roster. And then one of the things that helps with the incentivization is just the peer group mentality. And so we have a community manager specific Telegram group. And this group is where we facilitate a lot of the conversations that go on with kind of the day-to-day execution, but then also it's like, okay, who did really well, exceptionally well this week? Which communities are winning? Why are they winning? I think is the most important question. And then I think on the flip side is also true. Which communities need a little bit of help? What are the opportunities that exist within them? How can we all help and jump on? And so that makes it really efficient and also just really cool to see a lot of people start lifting each other up. And I think with that at its base, then we at Ava Labs and then also the wider Avalanche ecosystem can be very confident with how we grow, so long as people acknowledge that that is the culture, and we're not about trying to be too terribly tribal about the whole Avalanche versus all type approach. Instead, we're trying to just lift all of the sails, because at the end of the day, this market's still very small relative to the others, and if a few of us win, then inevitably we all will probably benefit some way or somehow.
Thanks, Jay. Good insights, and thanks, Rocky. So I just want to open up again to the room of any questions to any of us. We had a few different discussions between us, but we'd love to hear from you. Anyone? Otherwise, we'll just see on if there's anything left from the panel. Jay?
Sinan, I have a question for you.
Okay, all right.
So you come from... You're obviously based in Turkey, and you're coming from the perspective of knowing Avalanche fairly well, or extremely well, prior to joining. What did you see from the outside looking in regards to how the community was run versus now you're kind of in the thick of it, and you also understand the English speaking side and also the Turkish speaking side. So maybe highlight some of the differences of those communities internally and externally, and perhaps also region specific ones.
Right. So, I mean, my story is really interesting because, I mean, I think I had a bit of an exposure to crypto in 2017, and I didn't really understand what Bitcoin was, but I bought some at $50,000, then everything went down to 3,000. I lost it. So I lost interest. But then last year, there were a few people who got me back into looking into what like layer one protocols were, like kind of like the next generation. And then suddenly I came across Goon delivering a speech about the history of kind of consensus protocols at a meeting that my parents were at. And then suddenly I got interested, and I started doing research, and I got into the Telegram group. I looked at the Twitter, but I think the numbers were really low. So like Avalanche and Ava Labs, when I was looking into it, I couldn't really tell from the community actually where this was going. I just had a lot of blind faith in the kind of like the team and the technology and how exciting and different it was compared to the others. When I look now, I mean, we're 1 year ahead, 1 year later, we're incredible, the number of followers we have, and then the passion. I think the passion is the same across. I think being half Turkish, half English, and spending some time in the Turkish channel versus the English, the Turks are a little... they like to voice themselves a lot, so there's a lot more going on. Turks are Mediterranean; they like to speak their mind out. So I think it's just normal. So it gets quite interesting there. But I think overall in the English-speaking communities and the Turkish, I think there's a lot of, as I mentioned, like what I like to see is a lot of conversations around technology and where the tech is going, and I do see that in all those channels. So I think overall, it's from 1 year ago when I was kind of looking around the Telegram groups to now, it's like night and day. You can't even compare it. I think on that note, yeah, Jay, you were going to say something?
Yeah, another follow-up for you, Sinan.
Okay. Go.
So then what do you think are the main differences between global chat or global community channels and Turkish community channels, like sentiment? Do you have any specifics on that?
I mean, I think as I just mentioned, I mean, I spend most of my time in the English speaking, and then I also look at the Turkish one. The Turkish one, there's a lot more conversation going on. I don't know if they're always about kind of like tech, but there are some loads of questions. Obviously, people are trying to understand on how to use some of the dApps built on Avalanche, but there's some other types of questions. But it's just that there's a lot more heated conversations and a lot more going on versus the English one. I can follow the English one a lot easier than if I'm in the Turkish one. I kind of get lost. But it's just that I think there's more variety of different conversations going on in the Turkish channel. I think that's pretty much what I can say.
That makes sense. That's cool.
Tony, do you have a question? I think I brought you to the panel.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, thanks guys. So I just wondered if you could perhaps all elaborate on what it's like to work with the wider Ava Labs team, and what it's like to work with Prof Gun, and how you will get your loyalty to Ava Labs as opposed to other layer one solutions.
Yeah, that's an interesting angle. Maybe the clarification, at least from my perspective, wouldn't necessarily be that we have blind loyalty to Avalanche just because we're a part of the organization. I think one of the things that is really cool to see, especially if you look into some of our internal comms channels, a lot of people have so many different opinions, and I think that's something that's celebrated in crypto, but of course also in Ava Labs especially. And we all come from different types of backgrounds. Like I come from the Ethereum actually ecosystem most recently, and then further beyond that, I was pretty chain agnostic, covering most of the top 50, top 100 tokens at the time. Actually, a lot of those are probably not in the top 100 now, but the space changes so quickly. And I think I don't know. We've talked about this a lot actually amongst ourselves, and I think people who have a professional involvement in the space also talk about this a lot. But it's like you're just naturally interested in this technology because of how you foresee it revolutionizing points of the future. It's kind of this weird feeling, and I'm sure that maybe you, Tony, could probably have that same or empathize with that same feeling, especially if you're very interested in cryptocurrencies. So initially, at least speaking for me, I started out understanding this technology as a hobbyist. I was a professional marketer, or actually even before that, I was just kind of trolling around trying to understand Bitcoin. That was kind of the simple front and center piece that was really being waved in front of all of our faces. And now you're kind of asking yourself the question, what's next? What's next? So it's like Bitcoin, what's next? Okay, smart contracts platforms. What's next? DeFi. What's next after that? Yield farming. What's next after that? And you can see how it just perpetuates that rabbit hole. And that feeling is so cool. And I think the thing that I really appreciate the most is experience. And that's what I know most of us definitely can say has been really cool to see. So it's not like anyone is really telling us that we have to do X, Y, or Z. It's most of the time we know that it's for the greater good of the ecosystem. And then I think to your specific question about working with Goon is, at least for me, again, what's the craziest thing in my lifetime is I first got interested in crypto technically because of Goon's literature. So if you were to talk to me maybe like 6 or 7 years ago and ask if confidently being like, okay, do you think you would ever work with Emin Gün Sirer? I would have not even been able to answer that question at all. I probably would have said no. And then kind of one thing led to another and ended up somehow at Ava Labs, and now I've been working with them for over almost a year now. And the guy has so much passion for this technology, more so than any one of us. He's clearly pioneered a variety of things in this space, and he's also continuing to pioneer a bunch of different, I guess, like technologies and ideas in the space as well. And there's a reason why he's so well known in the space, but also well respected. I think those are two very important distinctions. And I think the energy is something that is really hard to look past. And I think that's something that's really cool to work with Gun and just all of the team members that he's been able to pull on to the staff.
That's really interesting. Thanks for your insights there. I've got one more question, and consider it perhaps a fledgling idea. I know that a lot of the AMAs and presentations available on YouTube involve members from ABBA, including Gun, talking about the snowflake and the slush principles behind the Avalanche protocol. And I wonder how much value you guys might see in marketing a visual like that.
Yeah, I think that would be extremely useful. We did take a stab at something like that end of last year, where we tried to outline, it's the piece called, I think it's called like Avalanche 101, or Avalanche Consensus 101, sorry. And it kind of outlines from a high level what the differences are. But yeah, there are specificities that we can definitely go into. And we're definitely trying to improve upon that. One of the most immediate pieces that's coming down the pipeline is something that gets really into the weeds on what I kind of highlighted with the Avalanche 101 piece. I guess, are you asking from that perspective? Because a lot of people usually come into the space and they kind of have to start from the foundation and build their way up. There's really no shortcuts, and perhaps that could be helpful.
Yeah, I think a lot of retail are informed to the point of knowing a little bit about their jump into the blockchain space. But, you know, for the people just coming in, you know, if they're looking at Cardano or XRP, Ripple, or Ethereum, how do you place these in a systematic framework of what came first and which one's the most advanced?
Yeah.
And I think it's difficult to pick that apart if you really don't have a the history in blockchain from an early time.
Very good point.
The programming.
Yeah, and I think a visual medium is probably best for that, like you said, because the reality is like consensus algorithms are always going to be hard to understand for someone just coming into this. So conveying in a more simple manner the differentiation, I think, is always important, because consensus is the core of the differentiation here. And yet, it often would take some extensive technical expertise, or at least knowledge within the space, to really be able to make those comparisons for yourself. I know for me, it's been 7 years of working within the space this month. If I didn't have all that background, then it would have been really hard for me to understand kind of what Avalanche is getting at from the outset. And even then, it took a lot more time to really get up to speed on how the consensus mechanism works and all of that. And when that is one of the core differentiators, we need to find a way to make that more palatable and accessible to that wider audience. So I think we're going to take that as a major consideration of something to add on to our docket, because I do think that would be very valuable. It's kind of a way to categorize and order them in a means that shows where we're currently at and what that look ahead is, because I don't think that there's something quite ahead of us yet. So I think that that'll be quite impactful, actually.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate your thoughts.
Thanks, Tony. Okay, so we got probably time for one more question. Is there anybody else in the audience? There was another hand, but we didn't have time to allow the person. Okay, we've got one more.
Can I speak now?
Yeah, hey, man.
Yep.
Yeah. Thank you for giving me a chance to ask a question. My name is Ken, and I have a few questions. And my question is about the Apricot. So can someone tell me what is the Apricot, and will the Apricot function at C chain or X chain, P chain, and what's the benefit of the Apricot, and will it make transaction at C chain more cheaper?
Yeah, so there's a lot that goes into Apricot, and some things that the team is working out on how that final package is going to look. It will bring a lot of optimizations to the network, but we don't have the final package of details or the release date on that. But it does lay the foundation for variable fees to be introduced, which will improve things for the user experience and improve fees for for using the network. So I do know that is a core component of what it enables. So unfortunately, not too many details we have right now for you, but as soon as they're available, of course, we'll communicate them to the community, as we always do.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks, Ken.
Okay, so you got maybe we can squeeze one more question. Otherwise, I think we're at the end. So another few seconds to see if there's anyone to ask one last question.
Oh, actually,
No?
I have a quick point to make.
Okay, cool,
on maybe like a call to the community a little bit. But it would be really interesting to hear. I know there's some restrictions with Clubhouse, of course, with Android users and whatnot, but it'd be really cool to hear what you guys want to hear about in respect to Avalanche. We started off with a general Clubhouse a few weeks ago. We're now focusing in on a little bit of the community side. We also have a bunch of other types of topics. We can also bring other types of people into Clubhouse as well. Would love to hear what you want to see, I guess, and what you want us to uncover. Whether that be on Telegram, Discord, any of the community channels, just ping one of us and let us know, and we'll definitely make that happen. I think we're going to be doing these fairly often for the foreseeable future, just because of how great the content ends up being.
Yeah, or leave a comment on the Twitter tweet that we came out kind of like an hour ago for this event. So yeah, we'd love to hear from you. Okay then, guys. So thank you very much for joining the community and the panelists. So we look forward to having the third session in 2 weeks. All right.
Awesome. Thanks,
This has been
everyone.
fun, guys.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Take care, guys.
Appreciate
Ciao.
the time.
Thanks, everybody. Cheers.